I never imagined my own sister would turn into my worst enemy. For years, I worked quietly behind the scenes, paying all the bills, covering her expensive college fees, and keeping our home running, while they lived comfortably without asking how the money appeared. But the moment I said no to one of her outrageous demands, everything changed. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. My name is Sierra, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a senior data analyst, which means I understand patterns. I see the world in spreadsheets, risk assessments, and logical conclusions. But for the longest time, the one pattern I couldn't crack was my own family. We lived in a crumbling Victorian house in the suburbs of Chicago. From the outside, it had that old money charm, but inside, the plumbing was shot, the roof leaked, and the heating bill alone could bankrupt a small business. I paid for all of it, every utility, every repair, every grocery run. My mother, Teresa, liked to pretend we were still living in the glory days before my father left, and my younger sister, Paige, was her perfect, shiny distraction. Paige was 25 and aspiring to be a lifestyle influencer. She didn't have a job, but she had a ring light and a lot of opinions about aesthetics. I was the invisible wallet, the one who made sure the Wi-Fi stayed on so she could upload her haul videos. The explosion happened on a Tuesday. I had just come home from a 10-hour shift, exhausted, carrying 3 bags of groceries because Paige had texted me that we were out of oat milk. I walked into the kitchen, and there she was, phone propped up against the fruit bowl, live streaming. "Hey guys, so for my birthday month, we are manifesting huge travel energy," she chirped to her screen. She saw me come in and didn't even flinch. She just turned slightly, keeping her good angle to the camera. "Oh, Sierra's home. Perfect timing." She ended the stream and turned to me, her smile dropping instantly. "I need $28,000. I stopped unpacking the groceries. "Excuse me? For my birthday trip. I'm taking the squad to Tulum. We found this insane private villa, and I need to book a photographer, obviously. It's an investment, Sierra. Think about the content." $28,000, I repeated, my voice flat. "Paige, the roof needs repairs. The boiler is acting up again. I am not giving you 30 grand to take pictures in Mexico. It's not just pictures, it's my career. You just don't get it because you're boring and you sit in a cubicle all day. Mom said you'd help me." Right on cue, my mother walked in. Teresa was wearing a silk robe that I had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She looked from Paige's pout to my tired face and sighed. "Sierra, honey, don't be difficult. This is a huge opportunity for your sister. You know how hard she works on her brand. Just transfer the money. We can worry about the roof later." "We aren't worrying about the roof, Mom. I am. I'm the only one worrying about anything." "You're being dramatic," Paige snapped. "You have the money. I saw your bonus statement on the counter. You're just jealous because I'm actually doing something exciting with my life." "I'm not jealous, Paige. I'm tired. And the answer is no." I walked out of the kitchen. I went to my room, shut the door, and collapsed onto my bed. I should have locked it. I know that now. But I was so used to just absorbing their demands, deflecting them, and moving on. I didn't think they would escalate. I had to work late the next few nights. Big project launch. I slept at the office on Thursday to make a deadline. When I finally drove home Friday evening, the house was dark. As soon as I opened the front door, the smell hit me. It was sharp and chemical, bleach, ozone, and something else, something burnt. My stomach dropped. I ran up the stairs to my room. The door was open. My room, my sanctuary, was a war zone. My closet doors were ripped off their hinges. My clothes, my vintage designer blazers, the silk blouses I'd collected for years, the professional wardrobe I had built piece by piece as my armor for the corporate world were in a pile in the center of the room. They were shredded, scissored into ribbons, and they were soaked in bleach. The fumes made my eyes water. $65,000 worth of clothing, gone. But that wasn't the worst part. My desk was overturned, my work laptop, the machine that held terabytes of data, models I had been building for 6 months, client files that were due on Monday. It was smashed on the floor. The screen was shattered, the casing bent. It looked like someone had taken a hammer to it. Paige was standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame, scrolling on her phone. I decided to declutter, she said, not looking up. You had too much negative energy in here. It was blocking my manifestations. I stood there, staring at the ruin of my life. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. My brain just switched into a different mode. It was the same cold, analytical mode I used when a server crashed or a dataset was corrupted. Assess the damage. Identify the root cause. Eliminate the error. I looked at Paige. She was smirking, waiting for the explosion. She wanted me to yell. She wanted me to cry so she could call me hysterical. Instead, I felt a strange, cold clarity. For years, I had asked myself why I stayed. Why did I pay for this house? Why did I fund their lives, while they treated me like a servant? It wasn't because I was weak, it was because I had been trained. Like a dog that doesn't leave the yard even when the gate is open. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. You get shocked every time you try to leave, so eventually, you stop trying. You start believing that the pain is the price of admission. You start believing that being useful is the only way to be loved. I looked at the bleach-soaked pile of fabric that used to be my identity. I looked at the broken laptop that represented my career. The shock collar was off. Okay, I said. My voice was so quiet it barely registered. Okay? Paige laughed. That's it? You're not gonna freak out? No, I said. I'm not going to freak out. I stepped over the debris of my life. I picked up the hard drive from the floor, praying the backup had worked. I grabbed my passport from the drawer she hadn't managed to pry open. I put them in my purse. I walked past her, down the stairs, and into the kitchen where my mother was drinking wine. We need to have a meeting, I said. Right now. Teresa looked up, annoyed. Can it wait? I'm watching my show. No, I said. It can't wait. Paige bounced into the room, still riding the high of her destruction. She's mad about the clothes, Mom. I told her they were out of style anyway. I did her a favor. It's just clothes, Sierra, Teresa said, waving her hand. You have insurance, don't you? Stop making a scene. Your sister is just expressing herself. You know she's artistic. She destroyed my work laptop, Mom. That's not art. That's a felony. Don't use legal words with me, Teresa snapped. We are family. We don't sue family. Besides, if you had just given her the money for the trip, she wouldn't have been so frustrated. This is really your fault, if you think about it. You provoked her. I looked at my mother's face. Really looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see a confused, helpless widow. I saw a predator. I saw a woman who viewed her youngest daughter as a mirror, a reflection of the youth and beauty she was desperate to cling to, and she viewed me as the engine, the fuel. I wasn't a person to her, I was a resource. The cruelty wasn't an accident, it was the system. They had normalized it so thoroughly that they couldn't even see it anymore. To them, my pain was just an overhead cost of doing business. And just so you know, Paige said, pulling up her phone, I already told my followers what you did. I posted a storytime video about how my jealous, toxic older sister is financially abusing me and trying to crush my dreams. It's already got 10,000 views. People hate you, Sierra. Look at the comments. She shoved the phone in my face. The comments were a stream of hate. What a monster. Cut her off. She sounds jealous. You deserve better, Queen. A whisper campaign. She was destroying my reputation before I had even left the room. You posted about me? I asked. I spoke my truth, Paige said. Okay, I said again. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't try to explain that I paid for the phone she was using to destroy me. I walked to the front door. Where are you going? Teresa asked, her voice sharpening. We're not done talking about this. Who is going to clean up that mess upstairs? You are, I said. I opened the door. The night air was cool. If you walk out that door, Sierra, Teresa shouted, standing up. Don't you dare think you can just come back when you cool off. You are abandoning your family. I looked back at them one last time. The decaying house, the entitled sister. The mother who would cannibalize one child to feed the other. I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm firing you. I closed the door. I got in my car. I drove to the nearest luxury hotel, walked to the front desk, and booked a suite for a month. I sat down at the hotel desk. I opened my backup laptop. I logged into my bank accounts. It was time to initiate the landlord protocol. I started canceling. The credit card Paige used for Uber Eats? Cancelled. The card Teresa used for her maintenance treatments? Cancelled. The auto pay for the electric bill, the water, the gas, the internet? Cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. I watched the notifications pop up on my screen, confirming each termination. It felt surgical. It felt clean. Then I opened a new browser window. I typed in the name of an old contact. Marcus. The accountant my mother had fired 5 years ago because he told her she couldn't afford a second lease on a luxury car. He was the only one who knew the truth about the house. I sent him a message. It's time. I need the shadow ledger. I went to sleep that night in crisp, clean hotel sheets. For the first time in years, I didn't dream about drowning. I dreamed about math. I dreamed about the beautiful, brutal logic of zero. And when I woke up the next morning, I was ready to balance the books. I closed my laptop and checked my watch. 9 a.m. sharp. I met Marcus at a diner 3 blocks from the hotel. He looked exactly the same as he did 5 years ago, pressed shirt, wire-rimmed glasses, and an expression of perpetual, mild disappointment. He was the kind of man who found spiritual satisfaction in a perfectly balanced spreadsheet, which was exactly why my mother hated him. When I slid into the booth, he didn't say hello. He just slid a heavy, black binder across the table. I've been updating it every month, Marcus said. I knew this day would come. Teresa isn't just financially illiterate. She is aggressively allergic to reality. I opened the binder. It was a masterpiece of forensic accounting. The shadow ledger, I whispered. They think the family trust pays the mortgage, Marcus said, sipping his black coffee. They think the estate covers Paige's credit card bills. But you and I know the truth. I traced the columns of numbers. He had categorized everything. Every transfer from my personal account to the family LLC. Every time I covered an overdraft fee. Every time I paid a contractor to fix a leak my mother ignored. The trust has been empty for 7 years, Sierra, Marcus said. It's a shell. The only liquidity in that house is you. You are the bank. You are the endowment. You are the safety net. He flipped to the back of the binder. There was a section highlighted in red. And here is the kicker, he said. The deed transfer documents. You bought the debt from the bank 3 years ago to stop the foreclosure. They never read the paperwork because Teresa thinks reading fine print causes wrinkles. They signed it. You own the LLC. You own the house. You own the furniture Paige just destroyed. I looked at the documents. It was irrefutable. I wasn't just a tenant or a daughter. I was the landlord. Thank you, Marcus, I said. This is a nuclear option, he finished. Don't hesitate to use it. They wouldn't hesitate to use you. I left the diner feeling heavier, but stronger. I had the weapon. Now I just had to wait for them to force me to pull the trigger. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, my phone rang. It wasn't my mother screaming about the canceled credit cards, though I knew that storm was raging. It was an unknown number with a local area code. I answered on the second ring. This is Sierra. Miss Sierra Vance? A deep, authoritative voice. This is Detective Miller from the suburban district. We need to come down to the station. My heart hammered against my ribs, a primitive drumbeat of fear, but I forced my breathing to remain even. May I ask what this is regarding? We have a report filed against you, by a Miss Paige Vance, regarding the theft of family assets and embezzlement from the Vance estate. The world tilted on its axis. Embezzlement. Paige hadn't just thrown a tantrum because her cards were declined. She hadn't just screamed into the void. She had gone to the police. She was accusing me of stealing my own money. She was trying to put me in prison because I stopped paying for her lifestyle. It was so audacious, so incredibly stupid, that the fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard rage. Embezzlement, I repeated. $200,000, detective? The report alleges substantial financial misconduct, he he said, his tone guarded. We need to clear this up. I agree, I said. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And detective? I'm bringing my accountant. I hung up the phone. I didn't panic. I didn't call my mother to beg her to stop this. I put on my sharpest blazer. I picked up the black binder Marcus had given me. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. They had crossed the line from toxicity into criminality. They wanted a war? Fine. I was bringing the receipts. I walked out of the hotel room. I didn't feel like a sister anymore. I felt like an auditor walking into a bankrupt company to shut it down for good. The police station smelled like stale coffee and floor wax. It was a sensory assault, but I didn't flinch. I walked in with Marcus, a step behind me, clutching the black binder like it was the nuclear codes. Detective Miller was waiting for us in a small interview room. He looked tired. He had the face of a man who dealt with domestic squabbles all day and was expecting another one. He probably thought I was going to cry, or scream, or beg. I sat down. I folded my hands on the metal table. Detective, I said. This is Mr. Vance, my accountant. And this is the complete financial history of the Vance family for the last 5 years. Marcus slid the binder across the table. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Miller opened it. He started reading. I watched his eyes scan the pages. I watched the skepticism fade, replaced by confusion. And then, slowly, by realization, he saw the transfers. He saw the family trust with a balance of 0. He saw the mortgage payments coming from my personal account, month after month, year after year. She claimed you stole $200,000, Miller said, tapping a page. That figure, Marcus said, his voice dry as dust, is roughly the amount Sierra has voluntarily contributed to the household since 2019. If anyone has been robbing the estate, detective, it isn't her. Miller looked at me. You paid for everything? Everything, I said. Down to the oat milk in the fridge. And the $200,000 she says you embezzled? It never existed, I said. My sister believes in a fantasy where money appears by magic. When the magic stopped, she assumed it was theft. It was just gravity. Miller closed the binder. He rubbed his face. The dynamic in the room shifted instantly. I wasn't the suspect anymore. I was the victim of a crime that was wasting his time. Filing a false police report is a Class 4 felony in Illinois, Miller said quietly. If what you're showing me is true, your sister is in very serious trouble. It is true, I said. Do what you have to do. We left the station an hour later. Miller was already typing up the warrant. It wasn't an arrest warrant, yet they needed to verify the bank records, but the investigation had flipped 180 degrees. Paige wasn't the victim. She was the target. I'm going to the house, I told Marcus in the parking lot. Do you want me to come? He asked. No, I said. This part I need to do alone. I drove back to the Victorian house. The sun was setting, casting long, jagged shadows across the peeling paint. My car was the only one in the driveway. I unlocked the front door. My key still worked. For now. Teresa and Paige were in the living room. They were drinking wine, probably a bottle they'd found stashed away. When I walked in, the atmosphere wasn't tense. It was triumphant. They looked at me like a rebellious teenager who had finally been dragged home by the ear. Well, Teresa said, taking a sip of wine. Look who decided to come back. Did the police scare some sense into you? Paige smirked. I told them everything, Sierra. I told them about the money. You're lucky I didn't press charges right then and there. If you apologize, really apologize, and transfer the money for Tulum, I might tell them to drop it. The delusion was breathtaking. It was a fortress, and I was about to level it. I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I walked over to the coffee table and placed a single manila envelope on top of a fashion magazine. What is this? Paige asked, eyeing it suspiciously. A check? Open it, I said. Teresa sighed, putting down her wine glass. Finally, I knew you'd come to your senses. Family is family, Sierra. We forgive you. She tore open the envelope. She pulled out the document. It was a single page, stamped with the seal of the county clerk. I watched her eyes move. I watched the color drain from her face. leaving her skin gray and papery. Her hands started to shake. "What?" Teresa whispered. "What is this?" "It's a 30-day notice to quit," I said. "It's an eviction notice." Paige laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "You can't evict us. It's Mom's house." "Read the deed, Paige," I said. Teresa looked up at me. Her eyes were wide, terrified holes in her face. "The LLC. Silverleaf Holdings. That's me," I said. "I formed Silverleaf Holdings 3 years ago when the bank was 3 days away from auctioning this house on the courthouse steps. I bought the debt. I hold the title. I am the landlord." You own the house?" Paige whispered. "I own the house," I said. "I own the furniture you destroyed. I own the roof you sleep under, and you are 6 months behind on rent." "You can't do this," Teresa stammered. "I'm your mother." "You're a tenant," I corrected. "A tenant who allowed another tenant to destroy the property and file a false police report against the owner." I looked at Paige. The smirk was gone. She looked small. She looked like a child who had just realized the monster under the bed was real, and it was holding a calculator. "The police know, Paige," I said softly. "They know there's no trust fund. They know you lied. Detective Miller will be contacting you shortly." I turned back to the door. "You have 30 days, I said. "I'd start packing, and this time, don't break anything." I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently, with a click that sounded like the final period at the end of a very long sentence. The fallout was swift, messy, and entirely out of my hands. Paige pled guilty to filing a false police report to avoid a trial that would have exposed every ugly detail of her life to the public. She got 2 years of probation and 400 hours of community service. It's hard to be an influencer when you're picking up trash on the side of the highway in an orange vest. Her follower count didn't just drop, it evaporated. The internet loves a villain, but it hates a liar. Teresa lost the Victorian house. I sold it 3 months after the eviction. I didn't even step inside for the final walkthrough. I sent Marcus. He told me the place smelled like stale wine and desperation. The proceeds from the sale paid off the remaining debts and put a significant down payment on my new life. Teresa moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood she used to make fun of. She lost her status, her society lady mask, and her ATM. It's been a year now. I live in a condo downtown. It's modern, minimalist, and quiet. There are no leaks. There is no peeling paint. The bills are on autopay, and the only person I support is myself. I was sitting on my balcony this morning, drinking coffee out of a mug that wasn't chipped, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew the voice immediately. "Sierra, please. We have nothing, the rent is due, and Paige can't find a job. You're our family. How can you sleep at night knowing we're suffering? Help us." I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the delete button. In the past, that text would have triggered a spiral. I would have felt the old, heavy chains of obligation rattling in my chest. I would have thought about blood, about biology, about the arbitrary accident of birth that tied me to these people. But today, I didn't feel guilt. I felt something else. There is a myth we tell ourselves about family. We tell ourselves that shared DNA is a suicide pact. We tell ourselves that cutting ties is an act of violence. But sometimes, leaving is the only way to find the person you were supposed to be before they broke you. I realized that blood isn't a binding contract, it's just biology. Family is built on respect, reciprocity, and safety. If those things aren't present, you aren't walking away from a family, you are walking away from a hostage situation. Choosing myself wasn't an act of revenge, it was an act of rescue. I had to let go of the daughter they wanted me to be so I could finally meet the woman I actually am. I didn't reply. I didn't send money. I didn't offer a lecture. I simply pressed delete. The message vanished. The screen went dark. And I sat there, watching the sun come up over the city, listening to the absolute, beautiful silence of a life that finally belonged to me. If you've ever had to burn a bridge just to keep yourself warm, share this story. You are not alone.